I can't FaceTime, AirDrop, or use iMessage is something that I hear far too often. And since Apple hasn't made a foldable, then surely foldable phones are just a gimmick, right? Well, no, and honestly, it's a shame because people are missing out on some really cool tech. What I've been using for the past 2 weeks might be one of the most impressive pieces of tech I've ever touched. Period. And here's the thing, it's okay if you or anyone out there doesn't want to switch away from an iPhone. It's just human nature. We get loyal to stuff we use every day, such as cars, sneakers, clothing brands, and gaming consoles. And that's just because it feels safe. Switching can sometimes feel like you're betraying a part of your identity. So when someone says, oh, it's not an iPhone, it's honestly fine because most of us do this with something in our own lives anyway. But if you're tired of iPhones or Pixels looking the same year after year, then you have to pay attention to devices like this when they come out because honestly, they deserve it. So this is the Galaxy Z Fold 7. It's not just a phone, it's really an engineering marvel in your pocket. It's refined and it makes me excited that Samsung's foldable efforts over the past decade have finally paid off. So let's start with the design because that's where this phone will make you just ooh and ah when you pick it up for the first time. And you should go pick it up for the first time. Go to your local Best Buy or wireless service provider, wherever, and just go pick it up. Even if you don't want it, you don't care for it, go and feel it, open it, and I think you'll get excited. The Fold 7 is noticeably thinner and lighter than any other foldable ever sold here in the US at just 8.9 millimeters folded and 4.2 millimeters unfolded, which means it actually feels like a normal phone when it's folded in your pocket now. It just feels as thin as any other normal device out there, and it's even lighter than something like a 16 Pro Max. This whole phone weighs just 215 grams. So go online, look up how much your phone weighs, and look at how much bigger this is probably than your phone, and just imagine how crazy light this will feel in your hands. Because when this is unfolded, that weight spreads out so nicely that it just feels like nothing. Like it's crazy this is a whole device in your hand. And on top of that, the build quality feels extremely solid. It's also IP48 rated, so water and dust resistance are there, but I wouldn't take it swimming or trust it too much tossing it in a chalk bag at the gym, especially since it's a $2,000 phone, but the occasional brushes with the elements and a bunch of rain and stuff will be no issue for this. Both the external and internal screens got upgrades from all the previous generations. The outer screen is now 6.5 inches with a wider 21:9 aspect ratio, so finally, when you're just using the phone without opening it up, typing feels normal, just like a regular phone, albeit it is a little tall for my liking. That's probably one of the only cons here, but width-wise, it's perfect. The screen is sharp at 1080p and supports 120Hz LTPO and gets up to 1400 nits outdoors, which is plenty bright. However, it doesn't have that neat anti-reflective tech that the S25 Ultra has, so it is quite reflective in sunny environments. When you unfold it, you've got an incredible 8-inch AMOLED display with HDR10+, 120Hz, with brightness also peaking at around 1400 nits. Now, Samsung added a titanium plate under the glass for better durability, and honestly, it feels good and solid. It doesn't feel too plasticky or anything. Now, it doesn't feel like the glass screen that you're accustomed to, but it still feels really good. You do, of course, still have the crease, but really, it's not an issue at all. It's not distracting. You quickly just learn to forget about it, and you don't really feel it like previous years either. Now, they did, however, remove S Pen support this year, so if you're hoping to draw or take notes or anything like on previous folds or the Ultra, then that is completely gone. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter because I really do love how thin this phone is and everything, and it would be nice, but even the previous generation that did support the S Pen didn't have a built-in stylus holder, so in my opinion, these have really never actually supported the S Pen. Like, unless it's built into the phone, to me, it's kind of a moot point. And you can still use a normal stylus for drawing and such, which will just work basically just as well. Maybe not as precise, but it still works. Just as impressive as the Samsung Galaxy Fold 7, we have the sponsor for today's video, the KTC H27P3. This is a 27-inch 5K monitor with true retina clarity. It has full DCI-P3 color coverage, 120Hz support, and it's fully plug and play with both Windows and Mac OS. If you ever thought about picking up an Apple Studio display, you know it's very clean, it looks great and everything, but it doesn't support 120Hz, and it definitely does not play well with Windows machines or gaming consoles. The H27P3 solves all that, as it is the top choice for designers, and it still comes at under $600. The resolution is 5120 by 2880, so you are getting 5K with a pixel density of 217 pixels per inch. This is the exact same sharpness as a MacBook Pro with a Retina display. Text, icons, web pages, Xcode, spreadsheet, everything looks insanely crisp, which makes it great for creative work or just general productivity. I'm using the included USB-C cable plugged right into my MacBook Pro, and that cable handles video, charges the MacBook Pro with up to 65 watts of power, and gives me access to 2 USB-A ports built into the back of the monitor. Just a very nice setup. And yeah, it shows instantly up in macOS with no driver installs and no settings to tweak. Just plug it in and it works. What really sets this monitor apart though is the dual mode. You get full 5K at 60 Hz when you want sharpness and detail, but you can also switch to 2560 by 1440. Which gives you now 120 Hz for smoother motion. That's huge if you ever do anything like gaming or editing timeline heavy video, or just want a more responsive UI. You can switch modes through the on-screen controller, so it's super easy. And here's the part that I really love. I actually switch between macOS and Windows all the time. I use my MacBook for editing and design, and then a Windows desktop for gaming. And this monitor just works seamlessly with both. And since it has a DisplayPort, HDMI, and USB-C, I can just easily go from editing Final Cut on Mac to playing Marvel Rivals on PC, or even connecting a PS5 or a Switch to play that, all on the exact same screen. No adapters, no resolution weirdness, it just works. Image quality is also no joke. It hits 500 nits of brightness and is HDR400 certified with 99% DCI-P3 and 100% sRGB coverage. It's genuinely mind-blowing how good the colors are when gaming and how crisp the text is when you look at things. This level of quality and features is hard to find even in the $1,000 price range of monitors, and this is somehow nearly half of that. The contrast ratio is also impressive for an IPS panel with 2000 to 1, and it supports both AMD FreeSync and NVIDIA G-Sync. So if you're gaming, you're getting tear-free smooth visuals without any weird artifacts. So if you're someone that works on Mac but also games on PC or console, this monitor makes that transition seamless, all while delivering true 5K Retina quality at a price that's actually reasonable. It's a fantastic all-around 5K monitor that punches well above its weight class. So check out the KTC H27P3 in the link down below in the description. And thanks to KTC for sponsoring this part of the video. The great thing is that this is a flagship through and through. Inside, it has the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, which is the same as the S25 Ultra. And this has 12 gigabytes of RAM with my 512 gigabyte model that I have here. And everyday use is just crazy smooth. Multitasking with 3 apps on the screen is easy. Thanks to One UI and Android 16, everything is very well optimized. You do have a taskbar at the bottom when it's unfolded, and you can turn on in settings to have the ability to have a different setup on the cover screen than on the inside display, which is fantastic in my opinion because I can treat the outer display like a normal slab phone, and then when I open it, have a setup more akin to a tablet, which just allows me to kind of do different tasks when I have the phone in the 2 different modes. Now you can also just use it how it comes standard, which means that it mirrors that main screen up onto the tablet, but I definitely don't like that for me. It also causes some weird things where you can't really add a bunch of apps to the dock when it's unfolded, since it's matching the amount of apps that's on the screen in the main screen. So I don't know, not my thing. Gaming on this thing is also just fantastic, and even prolonged sessions as the phone gets hot, it's really nothing much of an issue. The phone gets hot around the camera bump and around the top, which isn't discomforting at all. So really, this is a fantastic gaming machine. Everything runs like it should. You can basically run max settings on any game that you can expect to run on here. Just of course expect battery life to be affected depending on the settings that you use in games, and also expect the occasional glitches and things here and there because not everything on Android is optimized for foldables just yet. So you will run into some issues, but not big enough for me to kind of mention really. One of the cool things is that you can be gaming on the lower half of the display and then have a YouTube video or a movie on the top, or just something else on the top, or you can open Google Maps and browse places to eat while also watching a a video of the city that you're planning to visit. I mean, there's just a ton of possibilities that it's just hard to get into everything, but just think of it like you have a phone and a tablet, it's in your pocket, and you can even add that it's like basically a Kindle too, because it's actually the perfect size for reading on the go. So it's like 3 devices all in one, and of course the price kind of matches that, so a little shame on the pricing of course, but it'll go down with time. Now let's get into the weird things of owning a foldable, basically kind of the negatives that you'll run into. Software is a huge thing here, and there's a debate on whether Samsung One UI is currently the best or not, but one thing is for sure, it's still got ways to go. It can be really frustrating at times when something you want to work doesn't, namely a game or a specific app that you're using on the cover screen. Then you open it and it doesn't resize, or the game has to relaunch to resize, and it's just not consistent. Some games do resize, some don't, some apps do, some don't. It's just all over the place and a little frustrating when you run into these things. So in a game like Marvel Snap, let's imagine you're waiting for the bus and you have it closed because you're not going to open it there, and you're just playing the game, and then you get on the bus, you're sitting, or you get on the couch and you open your phone for the larger view, and you get this right here that you see right there. And that just sucks. And then you have to force restart the game and quickly try to rejoin the match if you're able to, and you don't get locked out. So there's just a lot of things you're going to run into like this. And then there's other games that are going to be a fantastic experience. I've been playing this new game called like MCO or something like that, and that you can just basically close it and open it at basically any point throughout the game, and it adjusts perfectly, which is so great. And even Disney's Speedstorm Racer, or whatever it's called, also lets you kind of fold it in halfway and kind of use the bottom as a controller, and with some features at the bottom, and then the top as just the screen, kind of like a DS sort of setup, which I kind of like. So there's a lot of possibility here in the future as we go and more people start, or more companies start making foldables, where we'll get more updates for these games. And there's a lot here that we'll get in the future, but we don't have yet. So just expect that you're still an early adopter, even though we're pretty far into foldables at this point. It's only just kind of becoming a thing. One of the things that I had to change real quick is that if you have an app open when the phone is open and you close it, the phone locks and the app closes and everything. And I think that's fine if you have a Z Flip, where it's a flip phone, so you know you shut it and you're kind of done with the phone and you're not looking at it. However, with this one, I almost basically always want to continue the experience on the front screen, or at least look at something before I then lock it. You can go into settings and turn it on so that all apps or only certain apps stay on. I went ahead and turned it on with all apps, and it just makes the experience so much more fluid, so much better. I think this should be on by default. Let me know what you think, because I definitely am really set on the fact that if you have the app open while it's in this book format, when you close it back to slab, it should still be open so that you can still use it and finish something up or whatever. Now the battery life, which overall is just fine. I mean, for what it is and how thin it is, it's kind of impressive, but overall with every phone in the market and for the price, it's not great. You're looking at 5 to 6 hours of screen time with kind of using a lot of things like multitasking, gaming, reading, a bunch of things like that. You can stretch it to a full day or more, but that's quite unlikely, especially with how fun the device actually is to use. And it kind of sucks that charging is still 25 watts wired and wireless. If you're going to top up, make sure you top up around 30%, 40% and get it back to 100 or so. Don't be expecting to plug this in at 2% and get a super fast charge while you're in the middle of the game or something, because you might actually just run it dry while you're charging it. The good thing is that we do still have wireless charging, and we also have the reverse wireless charging, so you can charge your earbuds or a friend's phone or something on the back of this phone. You just go into settings and turn that on whenever you want to use that. And again, this is a flagship, so the cameras match that as well. We get that 200 megapixel sensor borrowed straight from the S25 Ultra, which means pictures are solid, dynamic range is great. The color is less saturated than older Samsungs. I feel like that stigma that Samsung would oversaturate their colors is basically gone. I think people still complain about it, but honestly, like, I think it looks better than iPhone photos a lot of times, like I did in my comparison video of the 16 Pro and the S25 Ultra, which I'll link down below in the description. You can watch that to kind of get an idea for how this sensor is going to perform. But basically, you're getting fantastic pictures across the board. Same thing with video, you can even record up to 8K video. The only thing we're missing here compared to the S25 Ultra is no periscope lens, so don't expect crazy long zooms or anything like that, but it's not something that I ever used on the Ultra, and I think it's fine that it's missing that. The thing where this actually wins against basically any other flagship in the market here in the US is that the selfies on this are potentially better than any other phone, because you can actually flip it open and use the main camera that's on the back to see yourself with the front cover display, get all of that in frame, and then take a picture. So instead of using the front facing camera like you would on any phone, you're using the back facing camera as the front, if that makes sense. Now, this is at the risk of holding this whole thing all at once and you know, risking potentially dropping it. However, there has been this feature for a long time with Samsungs where you basically hold a high five up and then it'll take pictures right after that. So that's definitely the way to do it. Don't be reaching for the volume button or the shutter button or anything, because that will increase the chances that you drop this phone. And at nearly $2,000, you definitely don't want to drop this thing. The great thing is that there are a lot of carrier deals that are happening where you can basically trade in like an S25 Ultra and get this phone for around 600 to 800 bucks or so. And so there's definitely ways to bring down the price to get this if you do want one. But if those disappear, rest assured, you'll constantly see more pop up, especially as we kind of go into Apple's launch of a foldable in 2026. You'll probably see a big sale on all these older Samsung devices. Now, I have an S25 Ultra that I was looking into trading for this. I don't know if I want to trade it still, even after using it. As much as I love the form factor and I love the phone, it's a little bit more cumbersome to use on the daily than it is to use the S25 Ultra. I do like the S Pen on the Ultra. I like the fact that the screen looks just so dang good on the Ultra. Like, everything looks fantastic. Nothing looks quite as good on the Z Fold 7. However, when you don't compare them side by side, the Z Fold 7 looks absolutely incredible, especially the internal screen when the games are just fully blasting all the colors at you. So I might do a separate video on the S25 Ultra and the Z Fold 7 because I'm still kind of just wrapping my head around the whole thing. But overall, this is not an iPhone. And yeah, that's a good thing. But for some people, that's enough to write this phone completely off. But if you can just look past that for a second, go check it out. You would be getting one of the thinnest phones out in the market, definitely the thinnest foldable we've seen here in the US, and some of the best cameras that Samsung makes, and an overall experience that definitely feels futuristic and refined. It's not perfect. I mean, the battery could be better, the S Pen support is gone, and the displays are quite reflective, as well as that charging could be faster. But this is the first fold that actually feels ready for everyday life. And even if you don't want this phone for whatever reason, then go to the store again, check it out for yourself, read about it, do something, because it deserves the fanfare. It deserves the attention, because you can't complain about iPhones looking the same year after year and then not give attention to devices that come out like the Z Flip 7 and this one right here, and other devices that are kind of changing the vibe of what the phones have been over the past decade, and just expect Apple to do something when you're not actually praising the phones that are going against the grain. So now it's time to see how Google's going to respond with their future folds and what Apple does in 2026. I am excited for Apple just from a software perspective, because I'm sure they're ironing out kinks that even we're having issues right now with the Samsung, or at least I hope they are, and maybe that trickles down into Samsung devices and Google Folds as well. Competition is always good for absolutely everybody. So even if you buy the Fold right now, you can expect that the iPhone release will improve your Fold in some way. So this foldable right here is the best foldable that there is right now, in my opinion, and at least here in the US. Foldables are here to stay, so be ready.